Hello, back again. We have been making quite a lot of videos, long form stuff at the moment, and I did a bit of a thing where I wanted to predict the entire ELF season, and I will be doing that. I'm just going to be doing it in parts, because otherwise that'll be about a 5-hour video, maybe. I don't really want to taking up that much time, and my computer would probably blow up. So, what we're going to do today is look at the all-star selections that I think are going to happen in 2024. Special teams, first, second team, and the same with offense and defense. So that's what we're going to do. If you disagree, feel free to comment your disagreements. If you agree, feel free to comment your agreements. I have to leave so many players off of this list because there's only 2 running back spots in the whole of the first team and second team. And defensive backs as well. There's so many guys I wanted to put on and couldn't. I'll probably talk about when I get more into positional groupings. But oh my god, please, if I've missed out one of your favourite players, trust me, I probably wanted to put them on too. They were probably on it at some point and I swapped them out. I'm still probably going to be reading through this and be like, oh, but what about XYZ? I could have put XYZ in there. So I'm frustrated too. But part of this is just predicting, right? It's fun. I like doing it. I think it's fun to look back on stuff from next season that I'll be probably in 2025 season. I'll be looking back at this and I think that's pretty interesting. You can also see kind of like a time capsule where we're at in the league, and ultimately it promotes the league. Let's just get into it. Second team, all ELF for special teams. We're going to start off Aaron Jackson, a returner. People don't really remember much of the returners except for Devin Burrell because he had such an explosive impact with his 7 touchdowns and 1,820 yards. But Aaron Jackson was right there. Like, he had 1,300 yards, he had 3 touchdowns in the season, and was electrifying off of returns, punts and kicks. He's a better kick returner than he is a punt returner. Ken Hike is another player that I would be interested in putting him on this, but we'll hear about him more later. Thing with Jackson, he gets more scores. So for him, he's going to be my second team returner. And for punter, we have Henrik Schwartz, who doubles up as a receiver for the Frankfurt Galaxy. He is obviously a full-time punter, but he also is a receiver. And he finished with only 3 catches, so he is more of a punter. But he finished with exactly 2,400 yards punting with 42.11 average punt, which was better than Niels, who we'll get to in a second. So he is got a hell of a leg. Had a few of them blocked. Got 24 of them inside the 20. Which is pretty damn outstanding for a receiver punter. Like, he's excellent. I think that people kind of forget about punters, but I don't. And Schwartz is going to be my number 2, or my second team punter. And I think that he's going to continue. Galaxy are going to punt a lot less. That might affect his numbers, of course, with their offense being so much better. But I still think that he's going to be in consideration for the second team. Jakob Aldas is going to be the second team kicker. The kicker from the Rockall Panthers. He's big too. Like, he's 6'1", 234 pounds. He's listed at. Made 11 out of his 15 field goals for a 50% completion rate. Got 74 points overall in the league. Was a kickoff specialist as well. Just overall effective and accurate. He's also one of the better PAT kickers as well, which is always helpful, just to finish off the offense with 1 more point. So he's going to come in at second team kicker. Staying on the theme, we'll go for Ryan Rimler at kicker from the Frankfurt Galaxy. He's going to be kicking a lot of PATs, going to be kicking off a lot because they're going to be that good. Made the most field goals last year. That's why he's already, most of these guys are already all-stars. I haven't really changed anything, so I didn't really need to. Kickers are kind of weird in Europe where you got a few really good ones and some that aren't so great. But Ryan Rimler is one of the better, if not the best. Made a lot of kickoffs, was very successful as a kickoff kicker, and is also a big dude who can affect the return as well. So he comes into my first team. Niels Jonkman from the Heltavik Mercenaries is going to be my first team punter. Second only to Schwartz in the average yards per punt, but did get 2,851 yards overall as a punter. Had a few blocks, didn't get as many inside the 20 as Schwartz, but also punted a hell of a lot more often because the guards weren't great now than the Mercenaries. I still think he's going to be quite active on the field in terms of his responsibilities punting. I think he's going to be still punting quite a lot. He does also come in as a kicker and is a reliable kicker, so I think that just kind of adds to his all-star value. So I think that Niels is going to get first team punter. Was there any doubt Devin Burrell was going to get first team returner? We of course mentioned this a second ago. 1,800 yards, 7 touchdowns, the best returner in Europe, and it's not really very close at all. He's effective and punt and kick return. Steven Burrell, like, if you need me to explain, then you need to watch more ELF football, because he was kind of everywhere on highlight reels. He scored 2 in one game against the Raiders. His first touch for the Milano Seamen was a return kickoff touchdown, and now he's in Rokel. He's moved clubs before, and he literally picked up where he left off last time with the Kings, going into the Milan team and then going into Rokel. So it's Steven Burrell. Now we're going to take this one section at a time with the defense and the offense. We're going to go for the defensive line and the front seven and the DBs at the end. So second team all defense, going to stir some controversy, I'm sure. Alessandro Fernandez, I've got at number 2. He's kind of like one of the golden boys of the league, is one of the better European players. As an edge rusher, he's fast, he's strong, he affects the run game like very little other defensive ends do in the league. He's extremely effective. He's going back to his hometown in Madrid. I have no doubt that he's going to be, to quote a lot of D-line coaches, a shit wrecker. He's going to be everywhere. He's going to be the main man, but he's going to be facing a lot of double teams. Same thing we saw with Kitchens this season. I think he's going to be seeing a lot of double teams. Alessandro was, of course, second in sacks with 11 last year. Also 18.5 tackles for loss, which was enough for second as well. He's a phenomenal run stopper. That really does go under the radar when it comes to his level of performance. But I'm also going to go for a Emil Forfda, which is a bit of a risk I'm taking on Emil, but 7 sacks last season. He's 23 years old. He has the physical tools. He has the fundamental tools. And now he has more experience. Berlin have had the same defense for a number of years, so he's adjusted to the system. And I think that he's going to get above that 10 sack mark this year. I'm kind of putting that as one. You'll see a couple of players like that I'm kind of predicting them to have a step up. And Emil is one of them. I think that he affects the run well because he's a big defensive end. People forget how big he is. And Berlin are going to be facing some worse competition, but they're also going to be facing some good competition. So he's going to get examples on tape of him against both. I think that's important when considering all-star selections. Trust me, defensive end is stacked this year. If you don't know how stacked defensive end is, honestly, take a look at it. The fact to have Alessandro Fernandez as a second teamer speaks volumes. Like Gustav, I don't think he's even playing this year. Jan Bombach, Bernard Grub, I would want, like, it's insane. That's just a few of the guys I've, like, Kauz Bruins, I've left off, like, the fuck. Like, defensive end, people aren't talking about at the moment, is so stacked this season in the ELF. It's actually incredible. Aslan Zetterberg, one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in the ELF. He's going to come in. He's going to go to Paris. He, of course, was with the Kings, went to the Surge, now he's with Paris. Kind of took a while for him to get signed. I'm sure that was probably just him picking the pick of the bunch. Like, he's that good of a defensive tackle that he's going to have a few teams after him. As for stats, had 12 tackles for loss, had a shortened season, of course, with everything going on, but is still an extremely effective run stopper and can get to pass. He's a little bit shorter, as I think I've mentioned on some of my other videos when it comes to Aslan, but his leverage and his hand speed is excellent. So I can see him being in tight contention for the second team. I think there's going to be a lot of D tackles. Like, we've seen quite a few players I'm really interested in, especially a couple over there, Ryan, that I think are going to be real close to getting into second team. It's very competitive. And then I'm also going for another bit of a risk one. Gabriel Montagna from the Milano Seamen, the Brazilian defensive tackle. I love how he affects the pass. Like, I love how he affects the pass. I've heard from training camp that he's doing that still. Like, he gets tips at line of scrimmage. He can affect the pass. He can be a pass rusher. If he can stay on the field for more than 2 downs, I think that he's going to be one of the better D tackles in the league. Like, he is effective in the run because he's so big. He's effective in the pass because he gets these tips. He's got the length. He's got just a low motor, and he isn't maybe in the best physical. He's not like out of shape. That's not what I'm saying. But like, he isn't on for all 4 downs, which I know is pretty common for a D tackle. But to be the best of the best, I think you have to be on at least for the majority of the snaps. And I'd like to see Gabriel do that. Do I think he can? Absolutely, and I do want to see him do it. He's kind of a bit of a flyer for me. I'm putting him in hopes that we see how good he can be. Moving on to the front 7. Dawson Dels, the inside linebacker for the Paris Musketeers. I think people are going to be surprised that he's on second team as well. He's extremely proficient. His fundamental ability, his footwork is clean. He's just a bit shorter. He's a great tackler, great anticipation for the gap awareness as well. Phenomenal linebacker. But there is a lot of phenomenal linebackers, and I'm excited to see the class of linebackers we get in. But Dawson is going to come in as second teamer for me this year. He got 93 tackles, he had 9 tackles for a loss, he had an interception, he got 2.5 sacks, he got 4 pass breakups and a forced fumble. So he's kind of everywhere for that Paris team. He's kind of like the heart and soul of it, and for that I think that he's going to get second team. He's already an all-star, so it's not too controversial. I think a lot of people would imagine him being his number 1. Ludwig Myron, the Swedish outside linebacker, is incredibly underrated. I know he's topping a lot of people's things, but he had 115 tackles last year, 6 sacks, which is crazy for a linebacker, 2 fumble recoveries, one of which was a touchdown for 87 yards, and he had 15.5 tackles for losses. Yeah, he isn't really mentioned in like the most elite company. Like, you don't see people treating him like one of the best outside linebackers in the league, and I think that's wrong. He's 23 years old. He is obviously a little bit smaller as a prototypical linebacker, 6 foot tall, 214 pounds, but he's so diverse. His movement is just a step up because of his small size. He is more of a nickel player, but he's just playing that so well, and he can tackle, and he doesn't get mentioned enough. Why do people not talk about Ludwig Myron? I don't get it. Why don't they talk about him enough? He's so good. Like, he didn't get all-star last season for that incredible season, and I don't know why. Like, why? I want someone to tell me why. Is it because he's on Berlin? Like, Berlin are a good team. Is it because he doesn't get pass breakups as much as that? I don't know. He's like one of the only players that didn't get picked last year officially on the stat sheet within the top linebackers. Maybe that's it. But for me, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be an all-star this year. Speaking of first-time all-stars and younger players, Flamur Zimon, 24 years old. Obviously, I made a whole video about it, which I'll link in the description. He's huge, 6'5", 245 pounds, can come off the edge, can play as an outside linebacker, can affect pretty much his burst. I won't get too much into it because I have made a video that I do want you to watch. But last season, didn't play all the games, had a few injuries, appeared in 8 games, started in 6, had 6-7 total tackles, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 breakups, a fumble recovery. He's everywhere. 10 tackles for a loss as well. Like, I made the video, so go and watch that. You'll see why I have him as an all-star level player. Another player that I think people don't really talk about enough, Mitch Fettig, the cornerback for the Stuttgart Surge. Of course, the Surge is going to be awesome, so he's going to be mentioned. But he was an all-star, but I feel like people were a little bit surprised he was an all-star, and I don't know why. Like, his change of direction is elite level in this league. He had a sack and a half, interestingly, 4 interceptions, 8 pass breakups, a couple tackles for a loss, and there's a solid tackle on the outside. He isn't the best in breaking inside routes, but you know, he's actually a player I'm interested in doing a breakdown on, and I probably will do a whole breakdown on Mitch Fettig. But he is going to be an all-star again, I think. Just this time, I think he's going to go to second team because the amount of corners in this league is incomprehensible. I did a short video about it, about how many elite level DBs are in this one, and cornerback is especially competitive this season. This one is certainly going to cause some outrage. Marcelo Beard on the second team. What the fuck is Matt thinking? He got 8 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, a block kick. He was one of the best tacklers in the corner, like in the corner position last season. Yeah, he's awesome. He's one of the best European DBs, if not the best European DB. But he is a zonal guy. He's not a man cover corner. He is a zone corner. I think he's such a lengthy guy, and there's not a direct comparison, obviously, like to Richard Sherman, but he plays a lot like Richard Sherman. Not, of course, it's levels, but Marcelo Beard is going to be on the second receiver. I think a lot of people forgot that Ken Hike, who is my highest rated corner in the entire league, was on the other side to Marcel. So Marcel had the European receivers and was able to pick off quarterbacks. When we're looking at Ken, they're looking more at Marcel. Is that Marcel's fault? No. Does that make Marcel less of a good corner? No, it doesn't. He's elite level. However, I think that there are better cover corners, and in Paris he's going to be exceptional, and I guarantee he's going to get a bunch of picks, and I think this will probably get clipped a few times when he gets first team all-star. However, I'm going to put him as a second team all-star because I think that there are other corners that have more of an impact on the overall game than Beard. That might be controversial. I'm understanding that might be controversial. When I was making this and writing it and doing the edits, I was like, this is going to get some blowback, but I'm going to go with it. Another perhaps controversial one, Omari Williams as a second teamer. one of the biggest big play safeties in the league. Like, he got multiple pick sixes in the first like 3 weeks of the season, and then quarterbacks just stopped looking at him. I think that's why he's going to be lower. I have some other people above him as a safety position, because people know to not throw to Amari Williams now, and if you do, you might get picked off, and if you do get picked off, it might very much go to the house. He is a multiple-time All-Star. Like, he was an All-Star last season, he was All-Star the year before with the Ryan Fire. Like, he is one of the best, like I said, big play players. He had 4 interceptions in both the last 2 seasons. He got 3 touchdowns last year as a DB, which is insane. Solid tackler, gets good numbers, and Amari Williams. But I do think that he's going to suffer in the stat sheets because people don't want to throw to him anymore. Like, it took him a while to realize that if you throw towards Williams, you're going to have probably some bad stuff happen. And I think that's what we're going to see. And then my other safety partner for him, Daniel Wright, former Alabama safety. I've talked a lot about how much I like Daniel Wright as a prospect for the Prague Lions. He's going to be getting a bunch of tackles. I think he's going to be super effective on that defense. People forget how good that defense was last season. With all the controversy and everything going on with Prague, and just everything going on with Prague in general, to be honest. And they still had a okay defense. The stats don't tell the whole story. You got to watch the games. And Daniel Wright added into that with the experience, the explosiveness, and just how good of an athlete he is, and how he can affect that box, and how he can be nasty. I think Prague could be a really nasty team, like in a good way. You know what I mean? Like the Pistons back in the day of the NBA. Just being like the bad boy Prague Lions, I think, could be really fun. So I'd like to see that, and I think Daniel Wright could be a big part of it. He's going to be a tackling machine. I can kind of see him being just a guy who gets like a fuck ton of tackles. Like, not as much as an interception player, but he's going to be everywhere. So I'm excited to see what he does for the Prague Lions. And that will round out the second team defense. Now we're going to go to the second team offense. We'll leave the first teams for a second, but as we transition with that smooth fade out, second team all offense, we're going to look at the backfield first, and then the receivers and the tight end, and then the offensive line. So as you can see, Riley Hennessy is going to come in as a second team quarterback. I really like Riley Hennessy. Of course, he got injured a little bit last season, so other players stepped in. So he did get injured. He only played 7 games, but in those 7 games, he got 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and only was sacked 4 times. Like I've said before about Riley in other videos, just how clinical he can be when he's locked all the way in. He can dissect defenses with the surge offensive line and the Surge's outstanding wide receiver core. But I don't see any reason why he can't do it again. Like, he went all the way to the final last year. He had one of the higher QB ratings in the entire league. Riley Hennessy, I'm a big fan of. So I'm excited to see what he does this season. Again, with a full camp, hopefully. One more accurate, 63% accuracy, and obviously safe for the ball, as we mentioned. So with a full year, I think that he can get second team. Glenn Tonga. It might be a bit of a surprise to see Glenn on the second team, because, you know, he's Glenn. Like, he tears teams up. He had 8 games last season, got 926 yards and 9 touchdowns, and 7.23 yards to carry. Glenn's offensive line is fucking unreal. You'll see a few of them mentioned. He did sort out the fumble issue, because he fumbled a lot like a couple of years back, and he fumbled once this season, which is much improved. The reason why I got him as second team is because I don't think he has the most effect in the passing game. He has some effect in the passing game, obviously, but not as much as who I'm going to put in first team. That might be a hint of who I've got. Glenn's awesome. Glenn's explosive. We saw that with the hurdle over the top. He will run through a fucker's face anytime he wants to. He has the ability to do that. He's big. He's a bowling ball. He can run through those gaps. Going to be a great goal line threat, as he's been in his entire career, and it's Glenn. I don't see any reason why he can't get second team. And of course, as I mentioned, the offensive line is ridiculous. So if he says how maybe he has some injuries or is a little bit slower this season, his offensive line is going to be able to hold him. Fullback, Leon Helms. This one's kind of easy because there's like 2 fullbacks that have got first team and second team like every single season, and Leon Helms happens to be one of them. Has moved from the Galaxy to the Surge. It fits him better, honestly. I think that they run a decent amount in the Surge, but they don't have a crazy run game. So I think they will see him blocking a little bit more. Is Leon Helms. I just think he's a solid fullback. There's not really much to say. He can take handoffs when he needs to. He's big. He's aggressive. He can block well. It's Leon Helms. He's been an all-star multiple times, so he can be an all-star again. Now let's take a look at some of the receivers. Anti Mahonwu, one of my top 5 receivers in the whole league. You'll see him is on second team. He's in Paris. They've got so many good receivers. I think that stats-wise, he might see some division between him. I do still think he might get 1,000 yards. I think that he's the favourite out of the Europeans to get 1,000 yards. Of course, last season he missed a couple games, got 984 yards and 11 touchdowns. So, yeah. The amount of receivers come in now with Americans that have come into the league, I think is phenomenal. It's just, is he going to get the ball as much as some of the other guys? Perhaps not. If Anthony Mahomes first team, he's first team. I'm not surprised. Like he's the best European receiver we have. Harlan Kofi, former teammate of Anthony Mahomes. I love Harlan Kofi's game. He's such a good receiver. He holds onto the ball. He's an excellent blocker. He might be one of the best well-rounded receivers in the entire league. And I think that shows on the tape. If you watch the tape, he's a great blocker. He has great hands. And that's what you need in a receiver. So he's going to get it. It's not like people know that Haaland's really good, but I don't feel like people know just how good Haaland is, especially considering he's not that old. I can see him being an all-star again. He was an all-star last season. Just for the roundness he brings out. He's going to have a bigger role in the Ryan Fire offense this year, assumedly so, with Mahanwu obviously leaving. He could come in and be the number one receiver on the X. He could just stay as where he is and move. He moves around a lot. Like he goes multiple different sets. I'm a big fan of Haaland. I did a lot of film study on him. I'm still, like I said, I'm going to do a video. That's going to be put on the back burner at the moment, but I probably will at some point. Harlan Kofi is an excellent receiver. Next up, Jarvis McClown wasn't an all-star last season. Could have been, but of course left through the year. He only played 8 games, got 788 yards and 8 touchdowns. One of the best players with the ball in his hands, like in the entire league. You give it to him 5 yards, he can take 80. We saw it against Milan where he did it several times. He's also a great return man. Kind of, they go hand in hand. If you're good with the ball, usually a good return man. Jarvis obviously only played 8 games, and that's what stopped him being an all-star. This year he's in Hamburg. Hopefully we get to see him a lot more. He's going to be the fucking guy in Hamburg because they don't have as many receivers and their defense is weaker than last year. They're going to be getting the ball to him. They're going to let him go. I think he could get 1,000 yards. I think that he really, I think he'll get 1,000 yards. That's my prediction. Maybe even 1,200. A bunch of touchdowns. Jarvis McClown is awesome. One of the leading scorers in the GFL last year, so he's no stranger, or not last year, did a couple years back. So he's no stranger to finding the end zone. I'm a massive Jarvis fan at the Raiders. I was kind of gutted that they lost him. I'm not a Raiders fan, but I was just sad to not see him in the league anymore. And I'm happy we're getting back. At tight end, I've gone for Levy Cruz. Because, no offense to Levy Cruz, because Beer Obama isn't in the league yet. If Beer Obama's in the league, I think it kind of shuffles. But Levy Cruz is a fullback who can play tight end. He's a tight end who can play fullback. He's using that offense everywhere. He is a weapon. Like, he's only had 190 yards last year as a receiver, but I don't think that tells the whole story. Like, people know that he's an excellent player. He's just used everywhere. He's only 26 years old. Was drafted, I believe, to the CFL like a couple years back, but didn't go over. But I think with Beer Obama, didn't get drafted. Could see some shift in that. But considering he isn't in the league yet, I'm going to have John Levy Cruz as my second team tight end. To the offensive line, another really hard one to make. Like, there's so many offensive linemen I wanted to mention but couldn't. I'm going to go for Sven Biddenbach at first, a Ryan Fire offensive tackle. Huge, nasty, aggressive, long, experienced. Like, if you haven't watched Sven, you need to. Like, he's a fucking dominant offensive line. The whole Ryan Fire was so good in the offensive line. He's a big reason for it. He can pass protect, he can run protect. He moves people physically out of the way. Along the exact same lines, we have Alexander Milanovic. They're very similar. Like, they're very similar. Their games are built around aggressiveness and about length and about being stronger than everyone else. And it works. Like, both the Vienna Vikings and the Ryan Fire do have extremely talented rosters. Both of these guys are all-stars. I don't see any reason why both of them aren't going to be all-stars again, other than injuries. Like, which I would be so devastated if either of these guys aren't able to finish the season. Our two guards, Lewis Thomas, who is one of the best run guards in the league. He's a little bit smaller as a guard, but so fundamentally excellent that he can move people without being as big as them. He's an all-star before. He's been in championship games. He's experienced. He's moving from the Milano team, which he was still an all-star in, to the Paris Musketeers. And of course, the better teams are likely to get more all-stars, to be honest. And we get more attention, and he's going to have to deal with a lot less now that he's got a better offensive line unit around him. He's got Thomas Felicia next to him, who is one of his former Milan teammates. He's got Poli Sacramento over. He's got a bunch of really talented players around him that are going to be able to make him flourish. He can pass protect, he can run protect, but of course, where he makes his money is run protection. And I don't really have a doubt that he's going to be in the All-Star selections. Octavio Amordum, I put him as a role player in my thing, and I'm really sorry. I really should have put him as a role player. I'll make like an adjustment to that at some point, but like Amordum's awesome. As a Brazilian offensive lineman, he's so mobile, he's so aggressive, he fucks people up. I can see him being an all-star this year. He's not listed as being an all-star, but like in the past. But I think that he can break through. He's got Ebanks next to him. He's got a talented run game, and he's going to be a big part of that. At centre, go for Sistan Ngimbi. The Madrid centre has been in the league for a few years, hasn't been the most elite centre, but is getting better, like visibly getting better. He's like 21 years old. He's going to a Madrid team. He was at Paris, and they had some problems on the interior line, but I kind of think that's good for him to have had struggles and then to now get better. I think that he's going to break out. He's not one of the players I'm kind of putting a bit of a flyer on that. I think he's going to break out and be one of the better centres. Joaquin Christensen retired, which has left a massive hole at the centre position. The centre position is not the best in Europe, in my opinion. But I think Ngimi could be the future of that position. And I think that he could be effective. 6'1", 309 pounds. He's played in the league since 2021, and he's only 21 years old. Like, he played 11 games overall for Paris. Didn't start in all of them. Played for Barcelona in 2022 when they had their awesome team. I think that he's going to be a serious weapon, and people don't talk about him enough. And I think that he's going to get his first All-Star selection this season. That is the second team done. Let's move on to the first team. We'll start with the defense, as we did last time. Defensive line, Kyle Kitchens. It's Kyle Kitchens. Do you need me to explain? Like, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Nasty bastard. Will be triple teamed, but it's going to be still able to lead the league in sacks, as he's done. He's broken like his own record like 3 times. It's Kyle Kitchens. I have no doubt that he's going to be here. He's effective in the run, he's effective in the pass. Let's just move on, because we all know Kyle Kitchens. Aaron Donkour is going to be my next one, of course. Spent some time with Seattle Seahawks and with the Arlington Renegades, Houston Roughnecks, Calgary Stampeders. He's been around. He now comes back to the Rhein Fire, where he is from Dusseldorf. Like, he played for the Dusseldorf Panther when he was younger, so it makes sense he would come back to the Fire. He played in the NFL. Now, I know he didn't play in a regular season or anything, but he played in the NFL, made a strong impression apparently to his Wikipedia. I think he's going to be awesome. The Rhein Fire defensive line is fierce. He's going to get a lot of action. And with Jim Tomsula, who was a former D-line coach and D-line specialist, I can see him having a lot of fun. With Donkour, they've got Sale, they've got Max Parkinson, they've got Jason. You can see it's going to be that's going to be the best defensive line in Europe. And we've got Jason as well, which we'll get to in a minute. But Evans Yoruba, another all-star that's been an all-star multiple times. The best, or he's the second best defensive lineman or D-tackle, whatever you want to say. Evans is going to be there. Just signed with the Munich Ravens to join Kendra Wilson. He's a 2-time all-star in the league, and he affects like the pass and gets a lot of sacks. Like, he got 8 sacks last season. Like, that's more than most people in the entire league, and he's an interior defensive lineman. Evans is super fun to watch just because he's so strong, and I'm going to have him as another all-star, and I don't think that's going to be a controversial one. Jason Chikiri, another former all-star, got 5 sacks last season for the Rhein Fire, kind of rotated in a lot, but got a lot of tackles for a loss. Got 7 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks. He can affect the pass, he can affect the run. He's a monster. Physically just assertive, just big, and fills the hole. Quick, fast, agile, moves well. And I can see him adding another all-star vote. So those 2 guys, I don't think is like 3 of those 4 I don't think are controversial, and Aaron Donkour I don't think is that controversial. I know that some people don't like to have players that haven't played in the league or is predicted all-stars, but that's what this is about. Predicting things, you know what I mean? That's the fun of it. To the front 7, AJ Wentland, recently on Nick Alfieri's podcast. He looks great. Like, he's a tackle fucking machine. We know what we're going to get with AJ. He's going to be all over. He's going to get 100 plus tackles. No one's going to be surprised. He only played in 9 games last year, got 112 tackles, 2.5 sacks, got an interception, got 4 pass breakups, got a fumble recovery. He raises players as well. Like, he's going to be in Poland with a bunch of really talented players in that defense overall and just as a team. And if you don't think AJ Went's going to be there, then sure. But, you know, he's a fucking tackling monster. Even if he doesn't have the best season in terms of his pass coverage, which is still fine, he affects the run like very little other people do. So I don't see him not being an all-star if he can put up another 100 tackle season. Jordan, Denmark Heath, of course, UCLA, USC, and USFL, and kind of everywhere. He's from Sweden. He's going to be a fucking awesome linebacker. He's so quick. He's so fast. He can brush the pass. Jordan is probably, this is a good list idea I've just thought of, one of the newcomers I'm most excited to see. Just because we haven't seen, he's had some injuries, so we'll see how that kind of deals in with his play. But boy, if he comes out, he ran like a 4.6 in college. Like, if he comes out and he does what we all know that he can do, he's going to be so fucking good. And with that Paris team, Jordan Vasey, who I really wanted to put on this one, Digan Gomez, who I really wanted to put on this one. There's so many guys in that Paris front seven I wanted to put on this fucking list, but couldn't, because I could only limit it to a few per position. But Jordan, I think, is going to be like the heart and soul of that team. I hope so. Hope we see him. I think he's going to be a beast. Sosan Giovanni is criminally underrated. I know I went on a little rant with Ludwig, and it's kind of a similar rant, but he actually is an all-star. Like, he got second team all-star, and it was very deserved. He got 10.5 sacks. It's like, he plays everywhere. Like, he's not a linebacker. Like, he is. He's a linebacker, but he'll play on the edge. He'll play outside, play inside. He'll play nickel. Like, he plays everywhere. Got 63 tackles. Of course, he had his 10.5 sacks. Got forced fumbles. Got pass breakup. Sasan is one of the best linebackers in Germany. The Surge are going to use him an awful lot, and I'm happy to see that they're going to use him an awful lot, because he's a fantastic linebacker, and I can see him going from second team to first team this year. Finishing up our first team defense, we have Ken Hike Jr., my highest ranked corner in the league. I did a whole video about him. I'll keep it brief, so you can go and watch the video. That link in the description. Ken Hike is phenomenal. He's going to be dominating. He is on a worse team, which might see him not get exactly the recognition that he deserves. I think a lot of people do sleep on Ken Hike for some reason. I don't think he's been on many of like the top 5 lists I've seen, and he's my number 1. Like, I don't think he's been on many of the lists I've seen of like the best ones. So he got second team last year, but he had only 1 interception. I think that's maybe what caused it. But he had 8 pass breakups. He had 2 block kicks. He had a forced fumble. He had 3 fumble recoveries, and one of which went for fucking 100 yards. Controversial as it may be, but he is awesome. Watch the video if you want to hear more about how I feel about Ken Hike, but he's going to be an all-star, and I think he's going to be first team. I'm going to start Jamalcolm Liggins one with a question. How many pass deflections do you think Jamalcolm Liggins is officially recognized with on the ELF website? I'll give you a minute to answer, I'll give you a minute to comment. It's 17. 17 breakups is insane. Like, it's way ahead of anyone else, at least 4 ahead by anyone else. He had 2 forced fumbles, had a fumble recovery, had 5 interceptions. He's big, he's strong, he's lengthy. He wasn't used as effectively as he could have been. I mentioned this, I think, on one of my other things. But I think would be better as a press corner. They put him a lot off, and he struggles with speedier receivers. We saw Jean Constant kind of give him the business a little bit in their matchup. But now that he has a better corner next to him in Divine Buckram, I think that Jamalcolm is going to continue to be an all-star. He was first team all-star last season. But he's, yeah, a lot of quarterbacks I've talked to have said that he's their best, and he's the best they played in Europe. So who am I to judge? And I think that Liggins is going to be another all-star. Darius Nash, bit of a flyer here as well. Don't throw to Amari Williams, throw it to the other guy, and the other guy happens to be one of the best safeties in the league. Darius played in the XFL. He played for UTEP. He just is going to be everywhere. I think he's going to be playing a lot of nickel for the Ryan Fire, so putting him as a safety, maybe, you know, some people might not like having that, but I don't care. Darius Nash is going to be really good, and kind of like Amari and him are both excellent safeties, and I could put Amari's first team, but I think people have kind of learned their lesson when it throws to Amari, and now they're going to target Nash more, and I think he's going to be able to exploit that. Like, he is fast, he's very agile, he's aggressive with his hands, and with that front seven we talked about earlier, he doesn't need to be aggressive for very long. Like, he's going to be able to be a man cover safety. He's going to be able to cover running backs. He's going to be able to cover tight ends. I think he's capable of doing all of it. Christian Tutt, another player that's coming in from Auburn University, so has high expectations of him. Coming in with the Surge. Surge have got a great defensive unit, and I think that he's going to be great. He's an Auburn safety. Like, it's the same as Daniel Wright when it comes to having someone with that amount of pedigree, that amount of athleticism, when players might not necessarily know as much about them. I think kind of comes into it. So I've gone for 2 debuting safeties to get All-Star, which is controversial. I'm sure it's going to stir up some comments on this very long video, but that's what I'm going to go with. I like it. It's controversial, but I like it. First team offense. This one's going to be a little bit more predictable for the most part. Who would have thought that reigning MVP with one of the best teams in Europe and the best coaching staff in the league is going to be an MVP candidate? I'm going to have Jadrian as the number 1. I think that he's going to win MVP. I think he's going to lead a team to another undefeated season. I've said that in the past. I think it's going to happen. Don't need to talk about it too much. It's Jadrian Clark. Tomiwa Awaywo is my number 1 running back. I put a whole video together to kind of see where I thought he would land. He's re-signed back to the Munich Ravens. He is going to be so effective in a pass and a run without Markel. I think they're going to be leaning on him a lot more. The offensive line is vastly improved. I wanted to put Garen Brandt on this. I wanted to put Marlon Worthman on this. I wanted to put Dominic Armstrong on this. I wanted to put a lot of Munich Ravens offensive linemen on this. I wanted to. I just kind of went for some flyers, but you asked me tomorrow, I'll have Marlon Worthman as an All-Star, like in a heartbeat. But for now, I'll make maybe another one of these a month down the line. But Tomiwa is an electrified running back. Fumbles need to be cleaned up, but he's going to be in the All-Star conversation. I don't know how the fuck he wasn't an All-Star last year. People are going to be saying about David. Where's David? He's going to be splitting backs. He's going to be splitting with Gentry, and I think that both of them is going to have very successful seasons. Won't be surprised to see either of them get an All-Star, but they're going to have their carries halved. Therefore, I think they're going to suffer for individual yardage. But don't get it twisted for a second. I'm not a fan of either of them because I think they're both awesome. Patrick Posch, as I mentioned with Leon, he's been All-Star every year. They actually use him a lot, like Kauz in the San Francisco 49ers offense. Like, it's very similar to their Ryan Fire offense to the 49ers. And they use him in the pass, they use him as a run blocker, they use him in front of Glenn, they use him out like a little bit more as a wing. Patrick Posch is used everywhere. And he is the clear best fullback in the league. I don't really talk about it too much because he is. He's not particularly close, to be honest. Receivers. Matt Cole. I've talked the business about Matt Cole being the number 1, so I've kind of got to wear my heart on my sleeve and go for him as an All-Star. He's fast, he had NFL experience, he's going to be all over on special teams, so he could be a candidate for like special teams player of the year or return specialist, or, someone to compete with Aaron Jackson and Devin Burrell as a return man. And I think that he could get a lot of tackles if they use him there. I don't know that we're going to use him to tackle people, given he's such a good receiver. But I just have faith. Markel Castle speaks for itself. It's Markel Castle. He got 1,500 plus yards last year, was the best receiver, is a physical monster, and he's going to be joining up with the Frankfurt Galaxy offense, which happens to have an absolute gunslinger quarterback with Luke Zaradka, who is his former teammate who loves giving him the ball. Markel's going to light the stat sheet up. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Number 3, Darryl Stewart Jr. A lot of people consider him to be one of the best. He had a 3-game stretch of like 600 yards in the playoffs and like 6 touchdowns. He's phenomenal. Excited to see what he does with a full season at the Stuttgart Surge. Riley Hennessy clearly has the connection with him as a passer, and I think he's going to show out. Obviously, didn't have a full season last year. Going to have a full season this year. He's going to be a monster. Played for Michigan State. He's a beast. Andrea Botello Moreno, one of very few players to have All-Star selections in everywhere he's been. He's been to 3 clubs and got 3 All-Star selections in 3 years. I think he's going to make it 4, 4, and 4. Andrea is an excellent receiving tight end. Doesn't block as much as others. I've been told he can block, he just doesn't really want to. But I don't know. That's allegedly. But Botello Moreno is an excellent receiving tight end. He's fast, he's agile, he can move well for someone of his size. And I think the Spaniard gets his 4th All-Star selection in as many years. It's going to be a road claw where he's going to have Stephen Duncan giving him the ball. Of course, Matt Cole is going to be taking away a lot of the attention. He's got great offensive line to give his quarterback time. And I think he's going to be big in the red zone. Like, he got 619 yards last year and 8 touchdowns. It wasn't used lots. Like, he was used a good amount over the middle. And he still got an all-star. So he's, yeah, I think it's controversial. Offensive line, this was another really, really hard one to make. I really wanted to put so many guys into this one and into the second team, and it moved around a lot. Steven Nielsen is one of my highest rated offensive linemen in Europe. He's played for the CFL teams, I believe it was the Elks. He went to the Raiders Tyrrell, is now the Galaxy, with an improved team, starting left tackle. I imagine that was probably one of the first guys that teams were calling. Him and Keanu Ebanks, the Brit, also played with the CFL, with the Stampeders. Both of those guys, 1 and 2. 1A and 1B, even. You know, I love them both. Lucky enough to have spent time with Keanu over this season with the UE Bullets, and I think that he's fucking awesome. So, those two, 1 and 2, put either one of them, I don't care. They're both going to be all-stars. Keanu played it last season with Paris. Is now coming in and joining his former team, the Rockall Panthers. He's been an all-star as well, Keanu, and he's been in championship games and he's been in the CFL, so he's experienced. He's fundamentally excellent. Same with Steven, he's just so fucking big. Hard to really stop him. But interior, going to go for Nick Veens, the end of Vigard. Of course, both those guys used to play for the Fire. Well, you know, Nick still does. Leander has now gone to the Munich Ravens to join up with Garrett and with Marlon, with Dominic and with Joe Thomas. That offensive line is disgusting. And I think that he's one of the people that's going to be a big part of it. Nick doesn't get enough attention. He's a young guy. So is Leander. Both of these guys are like 20. They're under 25. Both of them are fucking phenomenal. Could go on about them forever. Going to make a video probably on both, if not. Actually, yeah, I'm going to make a video on both of those. Want to do that. They're going to be awesome. Can see them both being first team guards, so they're spectacular. Like I said, there's so many guys I could have put into this one. Pepler, another one of the Ryan Fire that could be considered. Raji, of course, also the Ryan Fire. He just moves around so much. He's not a traditional offensive lineman. He just moves everywhere. Holub from Vienna, I wanted to put on this one. Mentioned, you know, I think that Carrasco over in Madrid is going to have a good year. There's so many guys, man. Like, it was so hard to narrow it down to just like 10. And I thought about making it more, but that's what the ELF went for. But Matthew Daltrey is going to finish on center, former All-Star, plays for Vienna. He's the best that we have. Now that Christensen is gone, I think that he's going to step into shoes as be the best center. He has a good center of gravity. He has good active hands. He's Scottish, which just makes him like 10% more aggressive. I'm English. I can say it. Like, that's just, you know, I don't want to get cancelled for that. I'm English. It's fine. He's Scottish. He'll understand. He's going to be so good. And with that team around him, he's just going to be able to continue to be a big part of that run game. And I think that he's going to finish off with another all-star selection. So that will do everything. This was a fucking long video to make and a really fucking long video to edit, and I haven't even started the editing process at this point in the video, but I know it's going to take a while because the actual raw clips of this is over an hour of me talking into a microphone and looking at stats on my second monitor. If you guys enjoyed this, very much appreciated. Next time I'll probably try to predict the awards. Obviously this was All-Stars, but I'll probably try and predict MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year and stuff like that. So this was part 1 of predicting the entire ELF season. I have the team needs video that I will make but haven't started yet because mercenaries are being really weird about announcing their players. But we'll see. We'll see. This was fun. This was good to talk. The stream went really well for the Dragons. It's kind of and for Lenzi. So really do appreciate the people that came out and saw that one. Obviously shout out to Elephopedia, complimentary shout out to them for their use of their website and for them helping me out with the all-star selections and stuff when it comes to just seeing who was an all-star in the past. Yeah, I've got a lot of ideas now for player selections now that I've wanted to do a few more on these guys. I've got the team needs video. I've got the season's like 2 weeks away, so I kind of got to get my foot on the gas. But yeah, the massive shout out with that live stream. I want to put a bunch of live streams on my channel so that I can have more influence on American football in Europe. Because I've said before, if I'm searching up CEFL and it doesn't come up with highlight reels from like their channel's dead. Their channel hasn't uploaded in like 2 years. 70 year left. I don't think the highlights are good enough. So I would like to make my own highlight reels. When it comes to stuff like that, I would like to put my best. Like I would love to put, say, the Scorpions and the Dolphins play in the Italian league. I'd love to just rip that game off their channel, put it on my channel, and give it like I'd be like, this is my game of the year or game of the week or whatever. Whether or not they'd allow me to do that, I don't know. I'll have to ask. But if anyone's watching that from different leagues in Europe and would allow me to do that, I would love to. I'm going to make highlight reels of certain games in certain leagues. Nothing like crazy. It's not going to be like lens flares and fucking cutaways and fancy me. It's just going to be game highlights. Just try and get it out there, spread more influence. Because my videos now have got a little bit bigger since the Florenzi video. Some people subscribed, they saw some of my earlier stuff from the live stream. So yeah, rant over. This was a long video to make. I am gonna drink 5 more cans of Pepsi, not sponsored, while I edit this. Hope everyone had a great day. I've buggered my knee from calisthenics work. Tried to do a handstand and fucked over onto my knees, so I've got fat bruises all over that right knee. So yeah, hope everyone is good. I will see you next time. Thank you and goodbye.